The old grandfather clock in the hallway had always possessed a peculiar stillness, even when its pendulum swung with a deliberate, echoing tick-tock. In the ancestral home of the Sharma family, nestled amidst the sprawling, ancient banyan trees on the outskirts of Kolkata, it stood as a silent sentinel, witnessing generations come and go. But lately, its silence had become heavier, imbued with an unsettling anticipation. 10-year-old Rohan was the first to notice the change. He was a bright, curious boy with an imagination that often wandered into the shadowy corners of the old house. It started with whispers, faint, almost imperceptible rustlings that seemed to emanate from the very walls. He'd stop playing, his small head cocked, trying to decipher the source, but they would always vanish as quickly as they appeared. His older sister Priya, a pragmatic teenager engrossed in her studies, dismissed his concerns as childish fancies. "It's just the wind, Rohan," she'd say, her eyes never leaving her books. "This house is old. It creaks." Their parents, busy with their own lives, also attributed Rohan's unease to an overactive imagination. Their mother, a renowned classical dancer, was preparing for a major performance, her days filled with rigorous rehearsals. Their father, a historian, was engrossed in researching ancient scriptures, often lost in the labyrinthine world of forgotten tales. But the whispers grew bolder, morphing into soft sighs that seemed to follow Rohan from room to room. One afternoon, while exploring the dusty attic, a place forbidden by his parents, he found an old, leather-bound diary tucked away in a forgotten trunk. Its pages, brittle with age, were filled with elegant handwriting and faded ink. The diary belonged to a long-deceased ancestor, a woman named Alara, who had lived in the house centuries ago. As Rohan carefully turned the fragile pages, a chilling tale unfolded. Alara wrote of a malevolent entity, a shadow that had latched onto their family, feeding on their joy and leaving behind a trail of misfortune. She described strange occurrences, objects moving on their own, chilling drafts in closed rooms, and a pervasive sense of dread that hung heavy in the air. Her final entry spoke of a desperate attempt to contain the entity, a ritual involving ancient chants and a hidden amulet. The diary ended abruptly, mid-sentence, leaving Rohan with a knot of fear tightening in his stomach. He tried to share his discovery with Priya, but she was too busy preparing for an important exam. His parents, preoccupied with their own concerns, barely registered his words. Rohan felt a growing sense of isolation, burdened by a secret that felt both terrifying and real. The strange occurrences escalated. Doors would creak open in the dead of night. Footsteps echoed in empty hallways. The temperature in certain rooms would plummet inexplicably. Their pet dog, a usually playful Labrador named Bhairav, started whimpering and refusing to enter the west wing of the house. One evening, during a fierce thunderstorm, the power went out. The house plunged into an eerie darkness, illuminated only by flashes of lightning that cast long, distorted shadows on the walls. A blood-curdling scream pierced the silence. It was their mother. Rohan and Priya rushed to their parents' bedroom, their hearts pounding in their chests. They found their mother huddled in the corner, her face pale with terror, pointing towards the antique mirror on the dressing table. Etched into the dusty surface, as if written by an unseen hand, were 3 chilling words. "It wants one." Panic seized the family. Their father, finally acknowledging the gravity of the situation, remembered fragmented stories passed down through generations, whispers of a dark presence that haunted their lineage. He recalled an old family legend about a protective amulet, hidden somewhere within the house, said to ward off evil. Together, they began a frantic search. They scoured every room, every nook and cranny, their fear growing with each passing moment. Time seemed to slip away, the oppressive atmosphere of the house tightening its grip. Rohan, remembering Alara's diary, focused his search on the attic. Amongst the forgotten relics of the past, behind a loose brick in the wall, his small hand brushed against something cold and metallic. It was the amulet, an intricately carved silver pendant in the shape of a serpent coiled around a lotus. As Rohan held the amulet, a wave of warmth spread through him, a sense of calm amidst the terror. But their relief was short-lived. A low growl echoed from the hallway, closer now, more menacing. A dark, amorphous shadow began to coalesce at the foot of the stairs, its presence radiating an icy cold that seeped into their bones. Their father grabbed a heavy brass lamp, ready to defend his family. Their mother clutched Rohan and Priya tightly, her eyes wide with primal fear. The shadow began to ascend the stairs, its form becoming more defined, more terrifying with each step. It seemed to hunger, to crave something from them. Just as the shadow reached the landing, its chilling presence suffocating them, Rohan, clutching the amulet tightly, felt an inexplicable surge of energy. He didn't understand it, but instinctively, he held the amulet aloft and cried out, a desperate plea for protection. A blinding white light erupted from the amulet, searing through the darkness. The shadow recoiled, hissing like a wounded beast, its form flickering and dissipating. The temperature in the house instantly returned to normal. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, replaced by a sense of lightness they hadn't felt before. Silence descended once more, but this time it was a peaceful silence, devoid of dread. The power flickered back on, illuminating the relieved faces of the Sharma family. The antique mirror was now clear. The terrifying message vanished without a trace. In the aftermath, they pieced together the fragments of their family history. The malevolent entity, they realized, had been drawn to their family's lineage for generations, feeding on their fear and misfortune. Ilara's ritual had weakened it, but hadn't destroyed it completely. The amulet, blessed centuries ago, was the key, a beacon of protective energy that had finally banished the darkness. Life slowly returned to normal, but the experience had irrevocably changed them. The whispers were gone, the shadows no longer danced in the corners of their eyes. The old house felt lighter, as if a great weight had been lifted. Weeks later, Rohan was playing in the garden when he noticed something peculiar near the ancient banyan tree. Half buried in the earth was another old, leather-bound book, smaller and older than Ilara's diary. Curiosity piqued, he carefully dug it out. The book was written in a script he didn't recognize. As he opened it, a single pressed flower of vibrant crimson fell onto his lap. Intrigued, he took it to his father, who, after careful examination, identified the script as an ancient Sanskrit dialect. Days turned into weeks as his father painstakingly translated the text. The book told a story predating Ilara's time, a tale of a powerful benevolent entity, a guardian spirit tied to their land, weakened and forgotten over time. The crimson flower, the book revealed, was a key, a conduit to reawaken the guardian's power. The final passage spoke of a specific ritual, to be performed under the full moon, near the oldest banyan tree on their property. A sense of hope, fragile yet persistent, bloomed in the Sharma household. Could this be the miracle they didn't even know they needed? Could they not only banish the darkness, but also reawaken a force for good? As the night of the full moon approached, a palpable sense of anticipation filled the air. The family gathered beneath the ancient banyan tree, the moonlight casting long, ethereal shadows. Their father, guided by the ancient text, began the ritual, chanting the forgotten Sanskrit verses. Their mother held the crimson flower, its vibrant colors seeming to pulse in the moonlight. Priya held the silver amulet, its serpent-entwined lotus gleaming. And Rohan, the boy who had first heard the whispers, stood with them, his heart filled with a mixture of hope and trepidation. As the final verse echoed through the night, a gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the banyan tree. A soft, warm light emanated from the earth beneath their feet, slowly growing in intensity. The air shimmered, and a sense of profound peace washed over them. But something else was happening, something unexpected. High up in the branches of the banyan tree, a pair of luminous eyes opened, watching them with an ancient wisdom. A low, resonant hum filled the air, a sound that vibrated not just in their ears, but deep within their souls. The voice resonated within Rohan, a comforting yet undeniably powerful presence. He looked up at the banyan tree, its ancient branches now seeming to glow with a soft inner light. The luminous eyes, large and serene, blinked again, and a feeling of profound connection washed over him, as if he were looking into the eyes of a long-lost guardian. His parents and Priya stared in awe, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. The oppressive weight that had clung to their home for so long had completely vanished, replaced by an almost palpable sense of protection. The air felt clean, vibrant, alive. What was that? Priya whispered, her voice filled with wonder and a hint of lingering fear. Their father, his face etched with amazement, could only shake his head. The guardian, the legend was true. He looked at Rohan, the crimson flower still clutched in his hand. It seems you were the one meant to awaken it, my son. Their mother, tears of relief streaming down her face, embraced Rohan tightly. We're safe now, aren't we? The gentle voice echoed in Rohan's mind once more, a whisper that only he could hear. Safe for now, little one. But the entity you faced was a tendril, a scout. Its master slumbers still, but its gaze is now upon this land. A chill snaked down Rohan's spine, despite the warmth emanating from the banyan tree. He looked up at the luminous eyes, a question forming in his mind. As if sensing his thoughts, the voice continued. The darkness that plagued your family was drawn to a weakness, a forgotten pact. By reawakening me, you have stirred something ancient and far more powerful. The balance has been disrupted. The serene gaze in the tree's eyes held a hint of sadness, a shadow of concern that belied the peaceful aura surrounding them. The humming intensified slightly, and the crimson flower in Rohan's hand pulsed with a soft light. Over the next few days, an uncanny tranquility settled over the Sharma household. The oppressive atmosphere was gone, replaced by a sense of well-being they hadn't experienced in years. Bhairav, their dog, once again roamed freely throughout the house, his tail wagging with renewed energy. Their mother's joy returned, her laughter echoing through the halls. Their father, though still engrossed in his research, seemed lighter, the weight of his family's history lifted. But Rohan couldn't shake the feeling of unease. The guardian's words echoed in his mind, a constant reminder that their ordeal might not be over. He would often sit beneath the banyan tree, gazing up at the now visible luminous eyes that seemed to watch over them. He felt a strange connection to the ancient being, a silent understanding that transcended words. One evening, as the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the garden, Rohan saw it. A subtle distortion in the air, a ripple in the fabric of reality near the old well at the edge of their property. It was fleeting, almost imperceptible, but he knew he had seen something. He told his family, but the memory of their recent terror had begun to fade, replaced by the comfort of their newfound peace. They attributed it to his overactive imagination once more, gently suggesting he was still processing the events. But Rohan knew what he had seen. The darkness hadn't been completely vanquished. It was still lurking, waiting. Days turned into weeks, and the subtle disturbances continued. A cold spot in the garden near the well, the faint scent of decay on windless nights, the unsettling silence of the usually vibrant insect life in that corner of their land. Rohan tried to warn his family, but his pleas fell on increasingly deaf ears. They wanted to believe they were safe. One sweltering afternoon, Priya went to the well to fetch water for her plants. The well was old, its stone walls covered in moss and ivy. Rohan had a bad feeling, a knot of dread tightening in his stomach. He tried to stop her, but Priya, exasperated by his persistent unease, waved him away. As Priya leaned over the well, drawing water, a dark, viscous tendril shot out from the depths, wrapping around her ankle with surprising speed. She screamed, dropping the bucket as she was yanked violently towards the dark opening. Rohan's blood ran cold. He screamed for his parents, his voice filled with terror. He ran towards the well, but he knew he was too small, too weak to pull his sister back. Just as Priya was about to be dragged into the darkness, a powerful force erupted from the banyan tree. A beam of pure white light shot out, striking the tendril that held Priya. The viscous substance hissed and recoiled, releasing its grip. Priya stumbled back, gasping for breath, her face pale with terror. The ground around the well began to tremble. A low, guttural growl echoed from the depths, a sound that spoke of ancient malice and immense power. The air grew heavy, the temperature plummeting drastically. The sense of peace that had enveloped their home shattered, replaced by an overwhelming wave of dread. The guardian's voice echoed in Rohan's mind, urgent and grave. The master has awakened. It senses my presence. You have drawn its attention. Their parents rushed out of the house, their faces etched with horror as they saw Priya trembling near the well and the dark, swirling energy emanating from its depths. Their father, his historian's mind racing, remembered more of the ancient texts. The entity they had faced was indeed a minor servant, a scout for a far more powerful being. A primordial entity bound to the land, its slumber disturbed by the reawakening of the guardian. The well, an ancient source of water, was also a conduit, a place where the veil between worlds was thin. The dark energy around the well intensified, solidifying into a grotesque form. A hulking mass of shadow with glowing red eyes that fixated on the Sharma family with malevolent intent. A chilling whisper slithered through the air, a voice that seemed to claw at their sanity. You have interfered. Fear threatened to paralyze them, but the guardian's presence, though now tinged with a sense of urgency, provided a sliver of hope. Do not despair, little ones. I will protect this land, but I need your help. The crimson flower, it is a key, a focus for my power. The guardian's luminous eyes focused on Rohan, the unspoken plea clear. Rohan, despite his trembling hands, clutched the crimson flower tightly. He understood. He had been the one to awaken the guardian. He had a role to play. "Father, the book!" Rohan cried out, remembering the ritual described in the ancient text. "The verses! We need to complete the ritual." Their father, his fear momentarily overshadowed by a surge of determination, raced back into the house, emerging moments later with the ancient Sanskrit book. Under the malevolent gaze of the entity from the well, he began to chant the forgotten verses, his voice trembling but resolute. Their mother held Priya close, her eyes filled with terror, but also with a fierce protectiveness. Priya, though shaken, held the silver amulet aloft, its serpent coiled around the lotus, radiating a soft, defensive light. Rohan, guided by the guardian's silent prompting, stepped forward, holding the crimson flower towards the swirling darkness emanating from the well. As the ancient verses filled the air, the flower began to glow with an intense, vibrant light. The entity from the well roared in fury as the light from the crimson flower intensified, pushing back against its shadowy form. The guardian's power, amplified by the flower and the ancient chant, began to manifest. The banyan tree pulsed with light, its roots seeming to delve deeper into the earth, drawing upon an ancient energy. A beam of pure energy erupted from the banyan tree, joining the light emanating from the crimson flower. Together, they formed a powerful force, pushing back against the malevolent entity. The ground shook violently, and the air crackled with energy. The battle was not a physical one, but a clash of ancient forces, of light against shadow, of protection against malevolence. The entity from the well writhed and shrieked, its shadowy form flickering as it was bombarded by the combined power of the guardian and the ritual. Rohan felt a strange connection to the guardian, a flow of energy passing between them through the crimson flower. He could sense the guardian's immense power, its ancient weariness, and its unwavering determination to protect their land. Slowly, agonizingly, the darkness began to recede. The guttural growls weakened, the malevolent whispers faded. The swirling energy around the well dissipated, revealing the moss-covered stones once more. Finally, with a final, despairing shriek, the shadowy entity vanished, leaving behind an eerie silence and a lingering scent of ozone in the air. The trembling ground stilled, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted, replaced by a profound sense of relief, heavier and more complete than before. The light emanating from the banyan tree softened, the luminous eyes blinking slowly, their ancient gaze filled with a quiet triumph. The crimson flower in Rohan's hand dimmed, its vibrant glow subsiding. The guardian's voice echoed in Rohan's mind, weaker now, but filled with a gentle warmth. The balance has been restored for now. But remember, little ones, the ancient darkness sleeps, but it never truly dies. Be vigilant. Be protectors of this land. As the last echoes of the guardian's voice faded, the Sharma family stood together, shaken but alive. They had faced a terror beyond their comprehension and had witnessed a miracle they would never forget. The old house, bathed in the soft moonlight filtering through the banyan tree, felt truly safe for the first time in generations. But in the depths of the ancient well, something stirred. A single, glowing red eye opened in the darkness, fixated on the banyan tree in the distance. A faint, chilling whisper echoed from the abyss, a promise of a darkness that would one day rise again. The uneasy peace that settled upon the Sharma household after the banishment of the entity from the well was fragile, like the delicate wings of a butterfly. While the oppressive atmosphere had lifted and the overt manifestations of evil had ceased, Rohan couldn't shake the feeling of a lurking presence, a silent watcher in the shadows. The guardian's warning resonated within him, a constant reminder of the ancient darkness that still slumbered beneath their land. The luminous eyes in the banyan tree remained a comforting presence, a silent sentinel watching over them. Rohan often spent time beneath its ancient branches, feeling a sense of connection to the powerful being that now protected them. He would share his anxieties, his unease about the lingering silence, and though he received no audible response, he felt a sense of reassurance emanating from the tree, a silent promise of vigilance. Life slowly began to resume a semblance of normalcy. Their mother, inspired by the events, channeled her fear and gratitude into a powerful new dance recital, a tribute to the ancient guardian and a celebration of light overcoming darkness. Their father, driven by a renewed sense of purpose, delved deeper into the ancient texts, searching for more knowledge about the entity they had faced and the history of the guardian spirit. Priya, though still occasionally haunted by the memory of the tendril from the well, threw herself back into her studies with a newfound appreciation for life. But for Rohan, the normalcy was a thin veil over a deeper disquiet. He would often find himself drawn to the old well, a place that now held both terror and a strange fascination. He would peer into its depths, the water reflecting his own worried face, searching for any sign of the darkness that had briefly emerged. He saw nothing but the dark, still water, Yet the feeling of something ancient and malevolent lurking beneath persisted. One moonless night, Rohan was awakened by a chilling dream. He dreamt of the well, but it was no longer filled with water. Instead, it was a gaping abyss, a swirling vortex of shadows from which countless red eyes stared up at him. A chorus of whispers, far more menacing than any he had heard before, echoed from the depths, promising an inevitable return. He woke up in a cold sweat, his heart pounding in his chest. He ran to his parents' room, his voice trembling as he recounted his nightmare. They held him close, reassuring him that it was just a bad dream, a lingering echo of their recent ordeal. But Rohan knew in his heart that it was more than just a dream. It was a warning. The following day, strange occurrences began again, subtle at first, but undeniably present. A persistent chill in the air, even during the warm afternoons. The flickering of lights for no apparent reason. The unsettling silence of the birds in the garden. These were not the chaotic manifestations of the earlier entity, but something colder, more calculated. Rohan tried to alert his family, but they were growing weary of his constant anxieties. They longed for a return to normalcy, and dismissed his concerns as the overactive imagination of a child still processing trauma. He felt increasingly isolated, burdened by a knowledge they refused to acknowledge. One evening, their father discovered a new passage in one of the ancient texts. It spoke of a binding ritual, a way to temporarily seal the ancient darkness within the land. But it required a significant sacrifice, something of great personal value offered willingly. The passage also warned that this was only a temporary measure, a way to buy time, not a permanent solution. The discovery cast a pall over the family. The relief they had felt after the banishment of the entity from the well was replaced by a renewed sense of dread. The ancient darkness was still a threat, and now they knew that a sacrifice might be required to contain it. As they grappled with this new revelation, the subtle disturbances escalated. Objects began to move on their own again, not erratically like before, but with a deliberate, almost intelligent purpose. Doors would creak open slowly, revealing empty hallways. Footsteps echoed in the dead of night, heavier and more deliberate than before. Their mother, a woman of deep faith and intuition, began to sense the shift. The joy had faded from her eyes, replaced by a quiet apprehension. Their father, his logical mind struggling to reconcile the ancient texts with their terrifying reality, became withdrawn and preoccupied. Priya, sensing the growing unease, clung closer to her family, her earlier pragmatism replaced by a palpable fear. Rohan, feeling the weight of his initial discovery and the Guardian's warning, knew they were running out of time. The ancient darkness was stirring, its influence growing stronger. He spent more and more time beneath the banyan tree, seeking solace and guidance from the silent Guardian. One night, as a storm raged outside, mirroring the turmoil within the Sharma household, Rohan had a vision. He saw the well, no longer dark, but radiating a sickly green light. Figures writhed within its depths, their red eyes burning with malevolent intent. And at the center of it all, a towering shadow with eyes that glowed with an ancient, cold fury. He awoke, screaming, the image seared into his mind. He knew then that the time for subtle warnings was over. The master of the darkness was awakening, and it was far more terrifying than anything they had faced before. He ran to his parents, his voice filled with a desperate urgency they could no longer ignore. He described his vision, the sickly green light, the writhing figures, the towering shadow. This time they saw the genuine terror in his eyes, the absolute certainty in his voice. The fragile veil of normalcy shattered. Their father, his face pale, finally acknowledged the truth. The binding ritual, it must be performed. And the sacrifice, his voice trailed off, the unspoken question hanging heavy in the air. Their mother, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and fierce determination, held her family close. We will face this together, whatever the sacrifice. We will do what we must to protect our home, our land. As the storm outside reached its peak, mirroring the growing dread within the house, the luminous eyes in the banyan tree glowed with an intense, unwavering light. The Guardian's voice echoed in Rohan's mind, stronger now, filled with a sense of impending battle. The time has come. The ancient darkness rises. Be brave, little ones. Your courage will be your greatest weapon. Suddenly, the ground began to tremble violently. A deep, guttural roar echoed from the direction of the well, a sound that shook the very foundations of their home. The air grew icy cold, and a palpable sense of ancient evil filled the house, suffocating them with its oppressive presence. The shadows in the corners of the rooms deepened, taking on grotesque, shifting forms. The whispers returned, louder now, more insistent, clawing at their minds, filling them with images of despair and destruction. The door to the living room burst open with a violent force, revealing a swirling vortex of sickly green light emanating from the hallway that led to the well. A towering shadow began to coalesce in the doorway, its glowing red eyes fixated on the Sharma family, radiating an ancient, cold fury that threatened to consume them all. This was not the shadowy tendril they had faced before. This was the Master, the ancient darkness that had slumbered beneath their land for centuries, now fully awakened and filled with a terrifying, vengeful power. The Guardian's words hung heavy in the air, a profound and terrifying choice laid bare before them. The towering shadow took another step into the room, its malevolent presence intensifying, the air growing so cold their breath misted before them. The whispers intensified, weaving insidious thoughts of despair and self-preservation into their minds. Panic threatened to engulf them, but amidst the terror, a strange clarity began to dawn in their eyes. They looked at each other, a silent understanding passing between them, a recognition of the love that bound them together. Their mother, her face pale but resolute, stepped forward, placing a hand on Rohan's shoulder and another on Priya's. "Our home, our family, these are the most precious things we have." Her voice trembled slightly but held a core of unwavering strength. Their father, his eyes filled with a deep love for his wife and children, nodded in agreement. He clutched the ancient Sanskrit book tightly, his mind racing, searching for any further guidance within its brittle pages. Priya, tears streaming down her face, reached out and took Rohan's hand. The fear in her eyes was still present, but it was now mingled with a fierce protectiveness for her younger brother. Rohan, despite his small stature and trembling limbs, felt a surge of courage. He looked up at the towering shadow, its glowing red eyes burning with ancient malice, and then at the luminous eyes in the banyan tree filled with a silent plea. He understood what needed to be done. He remembered the crimson flower, the conduit of the Guardian's power, still clutched in his hand. It pulsed with a faint, warm light, a beacon of hope in the encroaching darkness. Taking a deep breath, Rohan stepped forward, away from his family. He held the crimson flower aloft, his small voice surprisingly steady as he spoke. This is precious. The Guardian's power flows through it. I offer it, willingly." The towering shadow paused, its glowing red eyes fixated on the crimson flower. A low, guttural chuckle echoed through the room, a sound that sent shivers down their spines. A child's trinket? A foolish offering, but as Rohan held the flower higher, its light intensified, bathing the room in a warm, vibrant glow. The Guardian's voice echoed in their minds once more, filled with a surge of power. It is not the object, but the heart that offers it. True love, freely given, is the purest sacrifice. The towering shadow recoiled slightly, its malevolent energy flickering. The sickly green light emanating from the hallway pulsed erratically. Their mother stepped forward, her voice filled with emotion. "My love for my children, it is boundless. I offer it freely, with all my heart." Their father placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice thick with emotion. "And my love for my family, it is my strength, my very being. I offer it without reservation." Priya stepped forward, tears still flowing, but her voice clear and strong. "My brother, my parents, I would give anything to protect them. My love is my offering." As each member of the Sharma family declared their love, their willingness to sacrifice for one another, the light emanating from the crimson flower intensified, intertwining with the light from the banyan tree. A powerful wave of pure, selfless love washed over the room, pushing back against the oppressive darkness. The towering shadow roared in fury, its form flickering and distorting as the combined power of the Guardian and their love assaulted it. The sickly green light from the hallway began to recede. The Guardian's voice echoed one last time, filled with triumph. "The bond is broken. The darkness has no hold here." A blinding white light erupted from the banyan tree and the crimson flower, engulfing the towering shadow. A final, agonizing shriek echoed through the house, and then silence. The oppressive cold vanished. The grotesque shadows receded. The malevolent whispers ceased. The sickly green light from the hallway disappeared, leaving behind only the familiar darkness of the night. The Sharma family stood together, trembling but unharmed, bathed in the soft, warm glow emanating from the banyan tree. The luminous eyes watched over them, filled with a profound sense of peace and gratitude. The crimson flower in Rohan's hand had lost its intense glow, but it still pulsed with a gentle warmth. He looked up at his family, their faces etched with relief and a deep, unbreakable bond. In the aftermath, a profound sense of peace settled over the Sharma household. The ancient darkness had been banished, its connection to their land severed by the ultimate sacrifice, not of an object, but of their selfless love for one another. The guardian remained, its presence a comforting reassurance. The banyan tree seemed to thrive, its ancient branches reaching towards the heavens with renewed vigor. Life returned to a new kind of normal, one where the memory of the terror they had faced served as a constant reminder of the power of love and family. They cherished each moment, their bond strengthened by the ordeal they had overcome. Rohan continued to feel a special connection to the guardian, often sitting beneath the banyan tree, sharing stories and dreams. He knew that the ancient darkness might still lurk somewhere, but he also knew that as long as their love remained strong, they would be protected. Years passed. Rohan and Priya grew older. Their parents continued their passions, their lives filled with a renewed sense of purpose. The old house remained their sanctuary, the banyan tree its silent protector. One evening, as an old Rohan sat beneath the banyan tree, now a grandfather himself, his own grandchild playing at his feet, he saw a faint shimmer in the air near the old well. A fleeting image of a glowing red eye appeared and then vanished. He felt a familiar chill, a whisper of the ancient darkness that never truly died. But this time, there was no fear, only a quiet resolve. He looked up at the ancient banyan tree, its luminous eyes still watching over them, and smiled. He knew that as long as love resided within the walls of their ancestral home, they would never truly be alone. The miracle had not just been the banishment of the darkness, but the enduring power of their love, a beacon that would forever ward off the shadows.